The Intel NUC Enthusiast line is one of the most interesting in the mini PC space. Where else can you find a PC that launched with an Intel AMD collaboration, followed up with an Intel NVIDIA combo, and now features an Intel plus Intel discrete graphics mashup? All this within 3 generations. With NUC 12 Enthusiast Serpent Canyon, Intel brings a whole bunch of major changes to the line compared to last year's effort, and most of them aren't for the better. The specs show a massive increase in core count on the CPU side, and there's Intel's first entry into discrete graphics with the flagship Intel ARC A770M. Memory is still stuck at DDR4 SODIMM, M.2 storage slots have increased to 3, and the price has gone up by around 40% over NUC 12 Enthusiast. This price is for a barebones unit, which doesn't include storage, memory, or operating system. In the box, you'll find a giant 330 watt power supply, power cord, and vertical stand. Serpent Canyon is clearly bigger and heavier than previous Enthusiast NUCs. It's longer, wider, and almost 50% thicker. I'm not sure of the exact weight, but I'm surprised just how heavy it is. Total weight with the power supply and box is almost 7 kilos. Aesthetically, I'm not a fan. I thought the previous units looked cool, but this one reminds me of a screen projector when sitting horizontally, and like a glorified modem when it's vertical. The large flashing LED activity light on the front looks oddly cheap and tacky for such a high-priced unit, but happy to report overall build quality is very high. Solid plastic without flexing or creaks. One of the biggest improvements is in the vertical stand. Phantom Canyon had a cheap looking plastic one, while this stand is really solid plastic and has a premium feel. There's also a good amount of ports, but Hades Canyon is a tough act to follow. Next to the power button is a full-sized SD card slot. The drive activity light also doubles up as an infrared port. There's a Thunderbolt 4 and dual USB 10 gigabit. A 3.5mm audio jack allows you to easily attach some speakers or headphones, and there's a quad array microphone too. On the rear, you've got 4 10GB USB 3 ports, Intel 2.5GB LAN, another audio or optical Toslink jack, HDMI 2.1, and dual DisplayPort 2.0. You should be able to run 5 displays without issue. Wi-Fi 6E and Bluetooth are included. Opening it up is just as annoying as previous units. Yep, Allen key instead of Phillips head screws. There are another 5 Phillips screws inside to remove. Why this mix of screws? Don't ask me. Now we lift the metal frame while watching out for the LED cable. Otherwise, your LED skull will go dim forever. There are 3 thermal pads removing the heat from the M.2 storage slots. The CMOS battery is easy to access. The Wi-Fi Bluetooth module is not soldered on and easily replaceable. 2 of the M.2 slots are Gen 4 NVMe and 1 is Gen 3 or SATA, which is perfect as I have a 1TB SATA drive. I recommend testing the unit to see if it boots before closing it all up, as you don't want to have to use the Allen key again if the memory or storage drive needs to be reseated. Here's a skull mask sitting on an LED array, which then shines through the semi-transparent section in the middle of the lid. And yep, it supports RGB, so you can choose any color of the rainbow for your skull. Intel posted a photo of what the cooling looks like inside, so I don't need to tear it apart. The Serpent mask is not included with the retail unit. By default, the fan is set to cool in the BIOS, but there are a few fan presets where you can customize it manually. There are no memory tweaking options available, which means XMP memory profiles aren't supported. No point spending money on high-end RAM. In power options, you can change the PL1 and PL2 settings of the CPU, as well as TAO. I'll be reviewing the unit as it ships. Before firing up Windows 11, I tried the latest version of Ubuntu, and it failed to boot. In Windows, you've got the option of using the Intel NUC Software Studio to change your LED lighting, power levels, and fan controls without needing to go into the BIOS, which is neat. There have been reports earlier this year of how broken the Intel ARC graphics drivers and software really are. Thankfully, things have definitely improved. My only issue was this annoying pop-up showing every time I booted up Windows. The Intel ARC software is an overlay instead of an app, and it's got similar functions to AMD's Adrenalin and GeForce Experience. Last year, my NUC 11 Enthusiast Phantom Canyon developed a fault. There were no replacement units available, so I got a refund. Luckily, I saved a bunch of benchmarks and recorded game footage, which I can now directly compare against Serpent Canyon. From now on, I'll refer to NUC 12 Enthusiast as Serpent, and to last year's Enthusiast as Phantom. Let's start with the synthetic benchmarks. In Cinebench R23 single core, the Serpent fell behind the i7 NUC 12 Pro by almost 4%, but it's 15% ahead of the Phantom. Multicore is where Serpent shines, thanks to its 14 CPU cores. It's up 54% over the i7 NUC 12 Pro, and a massive 162% over Phantom. Now for a different workload. Encoding a video is up 127% over Phantom, and 27% over the i7 NUC 12 Pro. CPU performance is great. The i7-12700H is a beast. Now for graphics benchmarks, the Intel ARC A770M has a 61% lead in DX11 over Phantom and 63% in DX12. This is what I think of those scores. Fire! 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 Intel graphics have never managed to perform as well in actual games as they do in 3D Mark. Now, let's check out a bunch of direct comparisons against Phantom. All games are 1080p high preset quality settings. No FSR, no DLSS, or XeSS. In the Assassin's Creed Valhalla benchmark, Serpent was ahead by 29% in average frame rate and 32% in the 1% lows. At best, that's half the gains made in 3D Mark. That lead plummets in Doom Eternal to just 14% average FPS uplift, but the 1% low is still much better. Let's look at an esports title. There are so many variables in benchmarking this game, but Serpent was ahead with around a 16% increase in average frame rate and 23% for the 1% lows. Here's a full breakdown of all my game comparisons against Phantom. If we ignore the Valorant result, the 5-game average is a 19% improvement in frame rate and 24% in the 1% lows. Not bad for a first effort from Intel, is what I would say if it didn't draw so much power. Oops, I wasn't supposed to mention that yet. Let's test some other popular game titles. Cyberpunk stays above 60 FPS, and ARC does a good job here. Forza Horizon 5 is a good 144Hz experience with adaptive sync. It's a game where you could push the resolution up if you wanted to. God of War mostly stays above the 60 FPS mark, but there are sections where the frame rate tanks. Serpent is unable to keep a stable 60 FPS at 1080p high in this game, which is a bit worrying. Marvel's Spider-Man does better. You can push resolution a bit higher for a 60 FPS experience. I also fired up Uncharted Legacy of Thieves collection. Here's Uncharted 4, and it works well. All the games I tested had no graphical glitches or stability issues. Serpent is also a capable 4K video workstation. Here's my previous video project. Scrubbing through the timeline and playing back video is pretty responsive. I've got a mix of 4K footage and 1080p 60 FPS for the gaming stuff. The 9.5 minute video took 11 minutes to export. Unfortunately, idle power draw is really high. Even though the ARC GPU is doing nothing apart from displaying the Windows desktop, it's drawing as much as 40 watts, which is bonkers. While Phantom's total idle power draw was only 16 watts. The included 330 watt power supply is definitely needed, as Serpent reached a peak of 307 watts while gaming. Of course, we're comparing maximums. Serpent mostly draws around 250 watts when gaming, but Phantom also is drawing less on average. All that extra wattage means a lot more heat, and while the mini PC is much larger, the noise level has increased a lot compared to Phantom. The quiet fan mode helps a little bit, but essentially all it does is delay the inevitable as the unit heats up. Serpent definitely sounds like a real NUC, complete with that high-pitched fan noise they're known for. Now you know why everyone is wearing headphones in the promotional images. Boom! But credit where credit is due. The i7-12700H is a great processor with huge performance gains. ARC graphics on the other hand, not so much. Phantom Canyon was exactly the mini PC I wanted. Cool and quiet. Serpent is quiet at idle, but has very audible fan noise when using it for gaming or video editing. Thermals are also up, but all things considered, it does a good job cooling 300 watts of power and heat. Overall performance is up, but so is the size, weight, power draw, heat, fan noise, and price. And in my book, only better performance is a good thing. I'm in the market for a gaming mini PC at the moment, and I bought the Serpent in the hope that it was a worthy successor to the excellent Phantom Canyon. Phantom wasn't perfect, but it nailed many great features. Unfortunately, NUC 12 Enthusiast Serpent Canyon is not a step in the right direction. It's not a bad mini PC, but it sure has a few problems. From start to finish, all I kept thinking about was how great the previous NUC Enthusiast, Hades, and Phantom Canyon units actually were, and still are. What I did want for NUC 12 Enthusiast was a Phantom Canyon upgrade with an i5-1240p CPU and NVIDIA RTX 3060 graphics chip. And no price hike. That's not going to happen, and we know why. Intel now makes discrete graphics cards, so every NUC going forward will always feature Intel graphics, which need to improve. Serpent Canyon follows Intel's recent trend of faster, bigger, louder, hotter, and more expensive. NUC 12 Enthusiast is pricey, noisy, and chugs too much power. If these things bother you, I don't recommend it. My search for the right gaming mini PC continues. I really hope Intel does a U-turn and brings the Enthusiast line back on track with NUC 13 Enthusiast. In the meantime, I think you should check out the ASRock Disk Meat. It's affordable and would easily outperform this NUC in gaming. Just put a nice cooler on it. Cheers!